You don't meet a hero in Final Fantasy VI. You meet 14 of them. Some were born into power like Edgar, others had it ripped away like Cyan. The brilliance doesn't lie in giving everyone equal screen time, but in making each of their motivations an essential piece of the puzzle. It's not Locke's stories or Terra's, it's the Returners' rebellion, and every narrative thread binds the collective tighter. Where many stories of revolution revolve around a central figure or symbol, such as Paul Atreides or Katniss Everdeen, Final Fantasy VI presents a dystopia without a hero to rise up and inspire the people. Instead, it focuses on a collective effort that spirals the game out into dozens of directions, before tying each of them together in an ultimate culmination. It doing so is a brilliant subversion of narrative expectations. Where other entries in the series like 7 and 16 are undeniably built around their protagonist, 6 deliberately sets up a symbol of rebellion with Terra, presenting her as a slave with mystical abilities who will rise up and give the people courage to fight back. But instead, Terra becomes the damsel in distress multiple times during the campaign, as the focus of the narrative constantly pivots to different figures. And in doing so, FF6 is able to tell a subversive story of heroism, one without a central hero. But it also tells one of the most all-encompassing stories in the franchise's history, as it portrays each of its 14 protagonists as an integral part of the rebellion. Edgar uses his political status to try and maneuver against the Empire, while Sabin takes on a more direct and violent approach to opposition. Locke's story involves subterfuge and deception, while Celeste shows how dissent within empires is what causes them to crumble. This gives the story an epic sense of scale as we follow multiple plot threads and characters without ever portraying one as the main story. This is part of the reason Final Fantasy VI was able to feel so epic, even though it's a 16-bit pixel art game. It's able to maintain the aura of a modern AAA game release because of the immense scale of its characters and story. In fact, the scale is so immense that according to the director, doing a Final Fantasy VII style remake of 6 would take them 20 years to achieve. And I personally shudder at the thought of the effort required to fully convey that enormous story with modern day sensibilities, where little is left for the player to imagine. But it's not just scale that makes 6's story the most impressive Final Fantasy has ever produced, but its complexity and non-linearity. Final Fantasy VI has several key moments that highlight each of its characters separately, with the most iconic being the splitting of the party after the Ultros fight. But then when the group reunites, several of the game's set pieces involve you splitting the party to divide and conquer objectives like the Battle of Nash. This is the game emphasizing the fact that none of these characters are the central protagonist of the story, and that it's only through teamwork that they succeed. In a genre that was and continues to be plagued by the Chosen One trope, Final Fantasy VI stood as a deftly real RPG that didn't provide a power fantasy of being a powerful hero that frees the land from tyranny. It was a game that portrayed an immensely powerful empire that crushed its dissenters under its mighty thumb, and required the coordination of several key figures in order to topple it. But the true moment when FF6 abandoned any semblance of a core figure is during the second half in the World of Ruin, where the game switches to an entirely non-linear story about journeying the land, recruiting your allies, and building strength in order to challenge the crazed Kefka. And let me tell you, when I reached this part of the game and realized that it must have been a core influence for my favorite game of all time, Breath of the Wild, my mind was blown. And even after you've assembled your team and journey to the tower for the final showdown, even the dungeon to reach Kefka focuses on divide and conquer strategies, as for the umpteenth time your party is split up. This is the game nailing the point home, that no single party member is more critical than another, emphasizing the value of teamwork in a genre that usually revolves around a chosen one. The game further displays the individuality of its cast by not uniting them under the guise of a shared noble belief, but rather deeply personal desires for wanting to see the Empire toppled. Whether it being Terra controlled by the Slave Crown, Cyan's fury from the poisoning of Doma Castle, Celeste's disillusionment with the cause she once so readily supported, or Gao's simple desire for adventure and loyalty to Sabin and Cyan. The Returners are a revolution, but they're not politically motivated. Rather than all falling under one ideology, the Returners are more a group with a shared goal, but contrasting motivations, further pushing the idea of individuality amongst the group. Final Fantasy VI takes every opportunity to de-emphasize once important characters and constantly shift focus to another of its protagonists. Finally, this focus is also shown in the game's magic system, which allows the player to customize their party with any spells they want. While this game would have been perfect for Final Fantasy V's job mechanics, there would admittedly be no reason to swap parties at that point. But FF6 utilized its many characters to create the best ensemble RPG for over 2 decades, until Fire Emblem Three Houses surpassed it, though that's just a personal opinion. For more Final Fantasy essays, here's one about how the materia system is the soul of Final Fantasy VII, and I'll be back in 2 days.